Lesson 177.
Mucho.
Okay, there are a couple of things about the adjective mucho that we need to discuss. First of all, it goes before the noun that it modifies or describes, right, Antonio?
Mm-hmm.
And the other thing, Antonio, is that it can mean one of several things. It can mean much, a lot of, or many. And as far as I can tell, it means much or a lot of when you're talking about something singular, but it means many when you're talking about something plural. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I would agree with that. Also, it means much or a lot of with things that you cannot count, like rice or flour.
Right, and those are singular words.
And those happen to be singular words.
So a singular word, so if you see mucho with a singular word, most likely you'll translate it as much or a lot of.
Mm-hmm.
And then if you see mucho with a plural word, you'll translate it most likely as many.
Mm-hmm.
Well, let's take a look at our examples here.
Mm-hmm.
Our first example says mucho dinero. The word dinero is a singular word, right?
Mm-hmm.
So in that case, we would translate mucho as much money or a lot of money, seeing as how the word dinero is singular. And the same thing with comida. Comida is a singular word. So we have mucha comida, we'll say much food or a lot of food.
Mm-hmm.
And as we said earlier, when the noun is plural, you'll want to translate mucho as many. And we have a couple of examples here. Muchos carros. The word carros is plural. And of course, muchos has the same ending. It ends in OS. So they agree in number and gender. So we need to translate muchos as many because it's modifying a plural word. And then the same thing with muchas casas. The word casas is plural, so we need to translate muchas as many. So when mucho is singular, or when it's modifying a word that's singular, we translate it as much or a lot of, but when it's plural, we're going to translate it as many. Okay, let's look at our exercises together. In number 1, El Señor Jones tiene means Mr. Jones has, and mucho dinero means a lot of money. In this sentence, the word mucho is going along with the word dinero, which is a singular word. And since dinero is singular, we'll translate mucho as much or a lot of. So we could say, Mr. Jones has a lot of money, or Mr. Jones has much money. Either one works, but in the answer key we have Mr. Jones has a lot of money. I guess that's a more common way to say that in English. The other meaning for mucho is many, but you can see that here it wouldn't make any sense to translate mucho as many. You would never say Mr. Jones has many money. That doesn't make any sense. But later we'll see times when mucho goes along with a plural word, and then we'll translate it as many. In number 2, we have nosotros tenemos. That means we have. And then we have muchos libros. Now here, the adjective mucho is going along with a plural word. It's plural. And muchos libros will mean something like many books. So number 2 will say, we have many books. Now if you really wanted to, you could translate muchos here as a lot of. You could say, we have a lot of books. But the way we're doing it here is we just have muchos, meaning many, when it's plural. So we'll translate number 2 as we have many books. In number 3, hoy means today. Nosotros estamos means we are. Haciendo means doing or making. And then we have mucho trabajo. Trabajo means work, and of course that's singular. So mucho is singular too. So we'll translate mucho as a lot of or much. So we could translate number 3 as today we are doing much work, or today we are doing a lot of work. And I guess the more common way to say that would be a lot of work. So number 3 will say, today we are doing a lot of work. In number 4, hay means there is or there are. And then we have muchos emparedados. The word emparadados means sandwiches, and of course that's plural, so of course muchos has to be plural too. So we'll translate muchos here as many, and we'll say many sandwiches. If you wanted to, you could say a lot of sandwiches, but in our answer key, we just have many. So muchos emparadados will say many sandwiches, and en la cocina will say in the kitchen. So number 4 will say there are many sandwiches in the kitchen. And number 5, mi perro bebe says my dog drinks. And then we have mucha agua. The word agua means water, and that's singular. So mucha is singular too. And since this is singular, we'll translate mucha as either much or a lot of. So we'll say much water or a lot of water. And then todos los días means every day. So number 5 could be translated like this. We could say, my dog drinks a lot of water every day, or my dog drinks much water every day. In our answer key, we have a lot of water just because we thought that sounded better. In number 6, I means there is or there are. And then we have muchos niños. Of course, niños means children, and this is plural, and muchos is plural, so we'll translate muchos as many. So hay muchos niños will say there are many children. And then we have the words en la escuela. That could say in the school, but in English it's typical to say at the school. So we'll translate in here as at. We'll say at the school. So number 6 could say there are many children at the school. And if you really wanted to, you could translate muchos as a lot of, and you could say there are a lot of children at the school. But we just thought it would sound better to say there are many children at the school. In number 7, la biblioteca tiene says the library has, and then we have muchos libros caros. So really that's just the word libros, which means books, with 2 adjectives attached. First muchos, and then caros. Caros, of course, means expensive. Since everything here is plural, we'll translate mucho as many. So we'll say many expensive books. So number 7 will say the library has many expensive books. If you really wanted to, you could say that mucho means a lot of. So you could say the library has a lot of expensive books. But in our answer key, we have many, just because we thought that sounded better. In number 8, mi madre está says my mother is. Haciendo means doing or making. And then we have the words mucho and pan. Pan, of course, means bread. And since that's singular, we'll translate mucho as a lot of or much. So we could say my mother is making much bread, or we could say my mother is making a lot of bread. We thought it would sound better to say my mother is making a lot of bread. In number 9, gracias means thank you. Por comprar means for buying. Then we have the words este, libro, and barato. That's really just the word libro, which means book, with 2 things attached to it. First, este means this, and then barato means cheap. So este, libro, and barato, all that together will say this cheap book. So number 9 will say, thank you for buying this cheap book. And of course, that's a little joke because we're thanking you for buying our Spanish book. And finally, number 10 is our way of saying goodbye and thank you for all your hard work learning Spanish. Number 10 says, goodbye, friends. And we wish you success in all of your Spanish studies.